fact of the matter is, naturally, the orifice provided for having sex, it's not the anus, Paul. It is not the anus. Everybody knows what it is. So if I come to you in your own house and you're sitting there and you're taking food and you're putting in your ears, you take the food and put in your ears. Do we need a conversation on the fact that there's a problem? As I heard one of the ministers when she was being vetted say, do we need a conversation about the fact that you might have a problem? That's not the orifice for having, and so naturally the anus was not created for sex. President Obama says period. I say period to him too. Because how can you have sex through the anus and say that that's right? That's what homosexuality, all this, what's it called, orientation, that's what it's all about. And Paul, I'm being graphic because, and I've said it on your program, what they have done is always to garnish this homosexuality. They say it's sexual orientation. But when it comes to what we call female circumcision, look at the words that they use. Mutilation, sexual mutilation. Go and see the anus of a human being when a penis is used there on the continuous basis. You destroy the sphincters, and then the feces just come out. Paul, is this no mutilation of the anus? It's the same thing. But I'm just saying that when you use them, everything about Western Europeans is fine. Ours is always bad. That can't be right. On the natural basis, biologically can't even be justified. I know doctor is going to speak.
I'll come to Doc on, on those details, but still on the politics of it. So, but are we not losing the battle? I mean, I told someone that's come to the studio to discuss this, and he said that
wrong.
He said that well, you guys, your time is really running out. The U.S. Supreme Court have taken the position of this matter.
The United States Supreme Court, but read the
even though I heard Queen Elizabeth talking just this week about putting up she was throwing up the ethos of Christianity. And the Prime Minister in his Easter message also talked about the United Kingdom being a Christian country.
If it is, then they should be doing the right thing.
If
it is Christian,
maybe they are turning around. But some people think the rise of Donald Trump in America and hopefully the Republican Party's victory might also change.
I'm hoping.
But in terms of the power structure of the world,
but Paul,
are we not losing the argument? Is it not just a matter of time that the United Nations is going to pass something that will affect us?
They will not pass anything. There is, you see, on the contrary, I've had this sort of propaganda pushed by Western European media. Sadly, the Ghanaian media is also picking up that language. It's like, oh, aren't we losing? Who says who? The fact of the matter is that statistically, the homosexual community in the world, those who are pushing, by the way, homosexuality has always been with humanity. So when people say, oh, it's a modern trend, that's a lie. If it's the biggest lie, it's in the Bible. How many years ago was the Bible written? Thousands of years ago. Exactly. So it's not a new thing, a new phenomenon. It's always been with humanity. Question is how each generation reacts towards it. All right, so that's the issue. Indeed, homosexuality and these sort of human extreme behavior is always symptomatic of a fallen civilization. Assyrian civilization, Babylonian. Check history, it's always there.
That's an interesting point.
That's a fact. And they know. Look, one professor delivered the lectures.
A fallen civilization.
Totally. And he described.
When the civilization is falling, that's how they
The Caucasian civilization is finished. They know it in terms of the economy. Look at what happened in 2007, 2008. Look, money has shifted. The balance of power in the world has gone to the east. That's a fact. Who said that 30 years ago?
And it's on his way to Africa.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's if we take advantage of it. And that's the question I leave with African leaders and young people. Instead of argue, oh, we're losing the battle. Shine your eyes. We're not losing any battle. The fact of the matter on the ground is the homosexual community is very few. Even in America, if you did a proper count, you will see that about 90% of Americans are against it. It's just that the few that are for it are vocal and they speak louder. Now, you were talking about the Supreme Court judgment. Match the judgment, the dissenting judgment of Lord Scalia, who just died a couple of weeks ago, against the judgment of the majority. He said there is not a scintilla of law in the arguments of equality which they use to cover their majority decision. And he said there's not a scintilla of law. Now, the truth is, for another U.S. Supreme Court judge to describe other judges as not propounding any legal basis for a decision they've taken, that's very serious, And look, he laughed at the whole thing. He scoffed at what was said, equality. So are we saying that simply because people are in the minority on any particular matter, then the principle of equality should be applied and protection for the minority should also be given? So, okay, I give the example, incest. There are a lot of people in America who want to marry their parents. Or, yes, people who want to get involved in bestiality. So because they're in a minority, their rights have to be protected. Everybody knows that for a principle to be protected as a right. You must pass the legal test of whether or not those rights that you want protected are in the interest of society. And therefore, if you're a kleptomaniac and you have a propensity to steal, that's not a right we can protect because it's negative. All right? If you are into stealing or, or in prostitution, we have to check because there are a lot of people who want prostitution legalized. Question, should we allow it? No. You must pass a certain test. And I'm sure that if you brought the matter before the Ghanaian Supreme Court, they will not apply the test the way the United States Supreme Court applies. And I don't think any other court in the world will do that anyway. All right? So at the end of the day, bottom line, legally, there's no basis. They claim that it's a human right, Paul. I ask this question. Fundamentally, how can you bring into the whole construct of human rights a principle that will fundamentally contradict the fundamental right, human right, which is the right to life? Because reductio ad absurdum, if all of us became homosexual, got involved in the lesbian activity, then the right to life will be destroyed. So it is not logical. Because
there will be no procreation.
No, exactly. It will be destroyed. So it can't exist in the same legal construct. Anyway, I'm sure.
Who were in secondary school in boarding house, different sets of rules are developed for sickle cell students. And we observe them go through those rules, which is different from the rules that normal students and pupils will observe. But we didn't criminalize it. So
that's my point.
So if one is born, that's a point.
But let me make a little correction.
Because that's also the concern, the criminalization of it.
Just a minute. The truth of the matter is, and we as a group will be putting a colloquium together and we will come up with a comprehensive legislation that will be solution based. So we'll address that matter. But two things. First of all, the scientific evidence as to whether somebody is born like that is, I think is fully on the side of those of us who say that people are not born like that. Look, the Human Genome Project, which was conducted over 30 years by all scientists all over the world, isolated, and the genes are the ones that control human behavior, even albinism that I am, and other human deformities. 26,176 genes were isolated. Not one homosexual gene was isolated, which would have proven beyond all reasonable doubt that people could be born like that. So although doctors accepting it, the Human Genome Project did not prove
but
that.
We've seen it. I mean, we've grown up with people, we call them Kojobesia.
Because there might be a hormonal imbalance. Because clearly, if we know you're a male, so you have you have more of a male hormone than a female hormone, a bit of female. It's possible that as a freak of birth, you might have more female hormones than the male hormones in a male, and therefore the person can have certain tendencies of a female. Now that's clearly biologically discernible. You can see that there's an error. And it's a freak of...
But that person could tend to be homosexual.
Yeah, but the point is that he might have a tendency, but you can sort that out. You don't just say that because he has that little defect, you accept it as normal and elevate it into a human right. No.
But you're saying that you can't criminalize it.
No, the point is, so there are people who have those biological problems. Those ones you can't. But there are others who... in terms of, they want a fashion. Actually, there are people who say, oh, it's a fashion. As you were saying, oh, everybody is doing it, so let's join it. And people who are actively even engaging, exploiting young people to get into those things.
That's criminal.
That's the point.
That's the criminal
this
part.
Doctor, that's the point. So we have to, in respect of coming out with a comprehensive legislation, you've got to look at the groups of people who have a problem, sincere medical problem, who need help. And those who need, and the help could be spiritual, it could be moral, it could be counseling, it could also be by medical and psychiatric treatment. Indeed, there are books, Paul, I'll show you books that indicate how you can treat the homosexuality, as doctors said, when it was identified as a mental health disease. There are methods of treatment. It's there, black and white. I will show you. In fact, there are psychiatrists and clinical psychologists in Ghana who will take you through that more. So there's some for once. I think this is what we in Africa can do. For once, we want to make a statement. We might not have money. My mommy says we're poor but proud. We might not have all the riches. Our politicians might be mess up our resources, but for once we can say that our contribution to world history is to make a statement, a reasoned statement, that this sort of behavior cannot be encouraged. Why? Because it will fundamentally destroy human existence. It will not promote the dignity of humanity to have anal sex. It doesn't. Or, for a woman to be married to another woman. I don't see how that promotes it. If anybody has that tendency, we're saying there are solutions. If they doubt it, as I said, after our colloquium, we'll worship God and we will pray. We will bring you the evidence. Anybody who's listening, watching in America, US, if you doubt it, because I have seen people...
If you doubt what?
You doubt the fact that the power of God can get people out of that situation. Because I've seen people who've gone through deliverance, but the power of the Holy Spirit, it comes out and they're clean and they will be witnesses.
So
They will give testimony. Well, the power of the devil, look, listen, the Bible talks about that we're not fighting against flesh and blood, against principalities and powers. You might disbelieve it, but that's a fact. The fact that you don't believe it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But bottom line, those who disbelieve these things will show you the power of God and how people can be delivered. And from the medical angle, there are treatments that you can go through.
That's not particularly intellectual, Moses. That's radicalism.
No.
That's religious radicalism.
No. You're rather choosing pejorative words. I'm quoting to you the scripture and saying that the power of God
but that's
is
for the Christians who believe in it.
No, I'm coming. No, for the Christians who believe in it. So I'm dealing with those who believe in it. So why do you say it's radicalism? Why do you use those pejorative words? If I'm stating a Christian theological and practical position, you are telling me it's radicalism. At the end of the day, then you say we are bigoted. Because I can respond and say that your statement that LGBT rights are proper and the right way is also decadent. They don't like that when we say that. But then you are saying that ours is radical, and I heard Dr. Rekubrobe even say it's fundamentalism. What's the meaning of that? I don't know where he's been to church, but what's the fundamental aspect of Christianity? Paul, and I asked you this question, and Easter is just around the corner. Can you conceive of the fact that Jesus Christ, look at all the suffering, the whippings, the beatings, the crown, the cross. He died so people should have anal sex? Are you serious? I don't think any Christian worthy salt will come to the conclusion that the death of Jesus Christ was for that purpose.
But they are atheists, Moses.
Oh, fine. For those atheists, we're saying, we'll put a Christian, and as I said,
Hindus,
I'm saying that in this, my argument, I have sometimes put Christianity aside. I said, look at the natural. The natural. Have you seen animals even get involved in that? Pollination, we know, is from the female to the male organ of the plant. So even plants don't get involved in that sort of thing. Nature itself is against it. So it's an aberration. I keep on saying, I look on myself as a classic example. You know, when I hear Dr. Rekubrobe talk, I often laugh. I am living my defect. Because genetically, albinism is a genetic defect. That's what it is. And you know, look at my face. Looks very neat. Look at the albinos who walk around in the sun. When I used to go around, you know my dad, Dad always would punish me if I expose myself to the sun. Because he said, I have a defect, so I must put myself in a way that I help myself out of my defect. So if I behave normal and walk in the sun like you do, you can see how the color gets damaged. And I always have photochromic lenses, reactor lights. I've always worn them since I've been 8. So I don't need anybody preaching to me. So I have lived my defect. And that's why I want to appeal to my fellows who are in that sort of state. If you have a homosexual, you have a tendency, I'm saying, I'm with you. I'm not against you. I'm living my defect. And I'm saying, come, let's join hands. We will help you. And that's why our motto is winning with the love and care of God and Allah. That's the best way to approach it. So those of you who say you are supporting, you don't live it. You don't know what we go through. It is better that we throw out a hand of help and help these people who are in difficulty. Because, Paul, young people are being destroyed, they're psychologically being manhandled, and our people are hurting. The least we can do as intellectuals, those of us who are in politics and are destroying the African continent, the least we can do is to use our intelligence to help these poor farmers whose sweat bring the dollars. That's what I tell my students all the time. And I think it's important. If the politicians won't provide that leadership, we will provide that leadership.